Hi guys, I am Sohail from Merkle Network and this is 26 question with Sohail.
Hi Sohail, thanks for joining our 26 questions interview today.
Hi Jasmine, pleasure to be here.
Cool, let's dive straight in. What is the business model of Merkle Network? How does it work? And who are your potential customers and which markets are you targeting?
See, Merkle Network is a protocol that actually appeals to users and developers looking to operate in a world which is going to be run, cross-chain. And because we are the first protocol to provide such a platform, there isn't any such protocol that currently exists. And that's going to, allow anyone and everyone to transfer and request information or assets, not just from one chain, right? But from different chain in a seamless manner. And when I talk about audience, the spectrum is so wide because, we are not just limiting our platform to one particular blockchain. It is going to target different blockchain, which is, at the moment in the hype. And at the same time, because, if you look at the problem that currently exists in the blockchain world, we have a lot of fragmentation that exists, in different protocols. And that is the problem that we are trying to solve because, these kind of fragmentation actually causes a lot of assets, a lot of information to be restricted into one single platform. And we aim to bring those enclosed information that exist in a major blockchain and at the same time liquidity also to be utilized on multiple chains. So that's essentially what we are trying to solve with Merkle.
As an investor in the world of blockchains, I would like to know what makes your project different from the rest that already exists. What makes them safer and more efficient?
Right. So, if you look at, we are the first protocol who's actually providing such an infrastructure to every project that want to operate in a truly interoperable blockchain world, right? Because currently the interoperable protocol that exists are either limited to providing a multi-chain functionality, which is actually limiting users, right, to operate seamlessly. There is still a lot of hassles that a user has to go through. And at the same time, a lot of interoperability that exists within ecosystem, that's kind of like an intranet, right? You have to be present in their ecosystem to get those facility of operating in a cross-chain world. And that's essentially limiting factor for any user or developer who wants to create an application, or at the same time for a user who wants to do a cross-chain transfer. And Merkle, we believe that we will enable a truly cross-chain functionality like it was never done before. And that's what separates us from any other interoperable protocol that currently exists in the market.
Project has interesting stories before it is created. So can you tell people about the story that gave you the motivation to build and develop a great project like yours?
The idea behind Merkle Network came last year, right? When we were actually looking to switch to layer 2 for some of the application that, the founders were developing. But what we saw was the fact that there is a lack of decentralized protocol, right, which can actually enable a lot of application to operate cross-chain. At that point, we realized that this issue is a more pressing issue, right? Because it is not just limiting one developer or user to operate in such a manner, but at the same time, it is going to get into effect when these whole ecosystem starts developing. And that's the reason, a lot of these emerging blockchain are in a way limited to operate in their own functionality. And that is why we created these Merkle Network to enable this decentralized application bit and tap into the cross-chain features without compromising on the decentralized aspect and at the same time security. And from there on, the idea got, formulated, the developers started working on it. And from there on, we are sitting now here without looking back. So, we have come really far in terms of, the ideation phase and where we are at the moment.
What are your most significant next priorities according to the project's roadmap? Is the team equipped with adequate funds and community to meet those goals?
Right. So if you look at where we stand today, and if I just look at some of the things that we want to achieve coming in the next month, we have a testnet launch happening on the 30th of November. Post that, we will have our bug bounty that's going to also happen in the first week of December. And at the same time, we are going to give our contracts for auditing as well. Post that, we are aiming to do our mainnet launch sometime in the third week of December. And also what's more exciting is the fact that during all these these times, we are constantly on calls with a lot of potential partners. And in fact, we have some big news coming up, just waiting for the official sign up before, we go out and announce it to our community.
What are your plans to grow internationally? What are you currently focused on? Developing or listing more markets, or creating your ecosystem or marketing and partnerships?
If I have to answer that right now, we have a focus very clear because, we have a ready protocol that's actually functioning. So in terms of development, we are way ahead of, the current time that we have actually set up for ourselves, right? Right now, we are in the midst of finding the right partners who can utilize Merkle's strength and at the same time empower their ecosystem through the cross-chain capability that we offer them, right? So that's what we are trying to achieve at the moment. And, we are not just looking at a certain set of projects to partner with. We are looking because, the use case of Merkle is so wide, across spectrum that we are tying up with projects across geographies, across different ecosystem. So that's something which is really interesting at the moment that's happening. And that is what we want to focus on moving ahead at the moment.
No one can achieve anything valuable on its own. Please tell us about your current and future partnerships that will lead you to success in this highly cramped crypto space.
Yeah, right. So, if you look at currently, if you would have been following our Telegram announcements and stuff, we have tied up with 3 projects in just a matter of week at the moment, right? Post our IDOs and, exchange listing. Right now, we have actually closed some big partnerships, like I said. So we will be going to do that announcement in the upcoming week. And at the same time, we are also in talks in the closure part, which we will keep doing it as in when we do the official signups with them. So yeah, that's where we stand at the moment.
What protocol does Merkle use for cross-chain interoperability? How high is the security level? Can you explain in detail what this protocol consists of? Is this a model similar to the push notifications that some platforms use to prevent users from losing investment?
Now, if you look at, we are not using any of the ecosystem that exists. In fact, we have created our own protocol, right? Which actually consists of 4 different layers. And, these 4 different layers are actually the base layer, which is the Oracle layer. We have created network layer. We have created service layer on which multiple services can be built on top of it. And at the same time, the top layer, which is the app layer, where developers can come and create those seamless cross-chain dApps and stuff. So it's a protocol, right, which is available for anyone and everyone. Even a user can come and, once it is in function, user can actually use that for, transferring information, transferring assets. And it altogether in the whole ecosystem, it altogether builds a whole new level of cross-chain services that can be built on top of it. So it's actually a bottom to top approach that we have taken to create this protocol.
Can you show me Merkle token distribution? What are the additional benefits of holding Merkle tokens over those that don't hold Merkle tokens? Are there also any benefits for long-term holders?
Right. So because it is a native platform, Merkle Network will use Merkle token to reward the node operators for providing their service, transferring of data from source blockchain to the destination blockchain, while at the same time maintaining the integrity and readability of the data, right? And at the same time, if you look at, because it is a native token, so any kind of transaction gas fee is going to be paid in Merkle. And that's going to be very minuscule as compared to what generally people pay at the moment. At the same time, there is going to be a burn factor that is associated with the token as well, which will make the token a deflationary token. And the more ecosystem adoption starts happening, so Merkle will become a deflationary token with respect to the demand. And we feel that the price is going to appreciate in the coming future. But that's again, that's going to happen when a lot of adoption comes on the protocol, which we are very positive and optimistic about. That's going to happen in the near future for Merkle.
What are the requirements to join your token sale? Would you use a vesting period system to avoid dumpers?
Yeah, in fact, I think we have concluded our token sale a month back. And right now, anybody who wants to get hold of Merkle token, they can go on MEXC Global and buy it out there. We are also listed on PancakeSwap and Dodo Exchange if anybody wants to grab some.
Is your platform suitable for crypto beginners, or does it only appeal to professional users?
For this particular bit, right, we are actually, if I just have to answer that, of course it will, because if you look at the current infrastructure of the whole cross-chain bit, right, if I have to transfer of assets between different blockchain, paying gas fee on multiple platform, if I want to bridge my token, and at the same time, setting up GUI, without any prior information, a user who's coming to the ecosystem wouldn't be able to do that, right? Because the process is so confusing for a new user. He would have to read multiple articles to understand what he's doing, because even a small mistake can result in loss of assets. So what we are actually trying to solve is we are trying to, with our cross-chain functionality, we are going to give a platform wherein users will be able to use the platform in such a manner that it is going to be easier for him. It's not just going to be, how he does a transaction, but, the platform will be, in terms of UI and UX, it will be in such a simple manner that anybody who wants to do it for the first time can be easily able to do it. And that is what we are trying to aim with, Merkle Network, because right now people have to go through a lot of hassles. And our objective is, we don't want to cater to not just those people who are already in the ecosystem, but also at the same time, those people who would be coming and using the platform for the first time, provide them a seamless and frictionless service so that their experience in the cross-chain world, they can remember that experience, and they don't have a bad impression of what blockchain is offering to them at the moment. So that is what we are aiming at the moment.
I want to have a long-term investment with this project, but I'm in doubt right now. How can you convince and assure me that this project is safe and profitable?
Yeah, this is actually an interesting question, and we actually get this a lot, right? But there's only one thing which I would like to say here, because if you look at the cross-chain trend, right? Because we are driven by narratives in crypto market. Today we have a narrative, tomorrow we'll have a different narrative. We certainly feel that cross-chain as a trend, or interoperability as a trend, is something which is going to come in future. Because right now, as I said, we live in a blockchain world which is very fragmented. The assets, the informations are very fragmented. And we are moving towards a world in blockchain where it is going to be a cross-chain world. And every blockchain will have their own ecosystem, but at the same time, there'll be a seamless flow of information between them. And that is what we are trying to aim at the moment. And we want to be future ready with what's going to happen in the blockchain world. And through our aim, we want to remove that whenever the ecosystems are ready. We want to remove that barrier between blockchain and provide a seamless way for people to move from one blockchain to another in an ease and convenient way. And that's what we are looking at. From an adoption point of view, from a very long-term point of view, once people who are associated with us at the moment, and once the ecosystem matures enough, definitely they are going to get benefit out of it. And that is what we are also looking at in Merkle at the moment.
How does your token increase the token's value, liquidity, and utility? What is your plan to make your project stable and provide the highest return for investors in the long term?
Yeah, honestly, the more development happen on Merkle platform, the more partnerships that we do, and a lot of people come onto this platform, transaction increases. That's when the platform starts maturing, and the ecosystem will derive more value out of it. Like any other ecosystem, if you go back in time and see, everybody started with those initial bit where they started acquiring users, developers. Innovation starts happening, development starts happening, and that's how any ecosystem grows. And that is what we are looking at. Because if you look at other ecosystem, it takes time for something to mature. We definitely have that in mind, that once that starts happening, things will start increasing its value, and that is what we are looking at creating for our users and community.
Could you tell us about the background and experience of the Merkle Network development team? How will they carry out your project during this current pandemic?
In fact, we have come a really far way from the time we've actually started developing this. At the moment, we are a team of 15 plus members, and there are 4 core team members who are out there. On average, everybody is like 5 to 6 years in the blockchain ecosystem, and they have prior experience in the development aspect as well. So Alex and Sandeep are 2 of the co-founders of Merkle Network, and all of them have extensive developer experience, right? Me, currently, I'm working as the CMO. So Alex actually has created and set up a lot of custom price bots for almost 50 plus projects, which are still used by a lot of projects like Ample, TrustWalk, to name a few. He has a lot of experience in creating blockchain applications, and at the same time being at the leadership position. Together they started building this project a year back, and successfully built this working project that we actually see now. So we are pretty much kicked about it. And in fact, all the team members that we have, whenever we get on a call, I think one thing which is very common amongst all of us is the fact that all of us are very excited about this whole shift that's going to happen. And when I say shift, I mean the cross-chain bit, right, where we'll move towards a multi-chain world. And we are pretty much excited about that. That is what sort of ties up all of us, all team members, to have that vision and to move into that same direction. That's what we are excited about.
Did you consider community feedback or requests during the creation of Merkle in order to expand on fresh ideas for your project? Many projects fail because the target and the clients are not quite understood. So I'd like to know, who are your ideal consumers for your product?
I really feel that we are certainly way ahead in terms of the development at the moment, right? Like I said, it's something which is we are being future ready at the moment. And at the same time, we have become adjusted to the fact that we are building something which is going to have its value in the future. That's not going to be through, some taking couple of decisions here and there, right? We are moving it slow and steadily. We've constantly been interacting with the community, right? And people who have been associated with us from day one, they really understand what we are trying to achieve, right? When we made this announcement to them and, everything, right, whenever there's an announcement about protocol development, when we released a white paper, we have received some immense feedback from the community at the same time, because it's hard in today's time to get community which actually sees the vision in you and, they stand by you. But luckily we have found those community members who are really strong. They don't just look for, when Moon, when Lambo, that kind of conversation. So I think that's something which, separates us from other projects which are out there. Luckily, we've got like a very good community. So, they constantly give us feedback on, how we are progressing, how we should progress. And we are always open to interacting with them and, taking their feedback. So I think, from that perspective, we've got two-way communication between us and the community.
Many projects have problems with UI and UX, and this one turns off new users. How do you plan to improve the interaction with new users and with users outside the crypto space?
Right. So in fact, I've already answered about that. Our main goal is to reduce the friction that any users go through, right? And that can be users who is there in the blockchain from some time, or at the same time, it can be users who have entered the blockchain world for the very first time. So that's our agenda, right? That's something which we have kept in mind, at the back of our mind. And we want to operate with that one thing, that it has to be a very seamless experience where no user has to go through the hassle, right, of operating or doing a transaction, or if he has less information, how does one does that? So that's something which we are very clear on, and we want to provide them an experience which is, hassle-free experience. So that's something which we are aiming to create with Merkle.
We all know that there are many hacks and data thefts. How can Merkle Network team minimize the chances of this happening? Can you tell me and others, what kind of security system do you have for everyone who joins the project you will or have released?
If you look at the consensus system of Merkle, right? So we are currently operating on 3 types of consensus. It can either be Merkle's proof of stake, where we have our own set of validators who can come and help the project, transfer and at the same time request data, validates those data and feed those data. And at the same time, if a project wants to come and develop, they can bring their own set of validators, and those validators, because they are comfortable with their own set, right? So there is no restriction when we speak about Merkle, because it's a flexible system, so to say, when it comes to the security model. And that is something which we have taken care of, because we don't want projects to go through that restriction wherein we say that only have our own set of validators. And that is where, the security is at place, wherein people can bring their own set and flexibly operate with Merkle at the same time. So that is something which we have taken care of right from the initial development part.
Many new projects make a good first impression, but are suddenly abandoned. My question is, how will you manage the project and the token to get a position in the market and become the best token in the crypto world?
So I think somewhere down the line, we know for sure that we have a very great product that we have created. In fact, that is evident whenever we go for partnership calls, and the feedback that we receive from a lot of developers, founders, is the fact that they have actually, at the back of their mind, they've actually thought something about this, right? But at the moment, there is no such protocol that actually exists which can give them that functionality. They are quite excited to learn more about, what we are doing, how we are doing, what the tech is, how we can actually integrate with them and let them solve different aspects of their product as well. What is happening with this is this actually creating a lot of new use cases for them as well. Because for a DeFi project, which initially they couldn't have done a cross-chain yield earning, now it is possible with Merkle, right? So for example, if you are present on chain A and you have assets and everything of chain A, but at the same time there is a high yield that's happening on chain B. Now what you have to do is you have to transfer everything on chain B, right? But with Merkle, you don't have to do anything of that sort. You actually can remain on chain A, stake your assets there. But because there is a high yield happening on chain B, you can get those yield earning onto chain A, and that is possible through Merkle. So this is actually creating a lot of new use cases for projects as well, and that is what is exciting because we get those feedback from people, and they say that they haven't seen anything like this. So that is something which actually creates a different plan for us, different approach for us, and at the same time give us that impression that people are actually excited to partner and see something like this in the ecosystem that exists.
What are your outreach and marketing plans to drive adoption of the blockchain accelerators? Do you have different strategies for different areas? What convinces us that transactions stored on the blockchain are virtually invulnerable?
So, in fact, we just had like 3 partnership announcements last week, and we are doing multiple calls. We just finished a couple of big partnerships, which we will be announcing in the upcoming week. But at the same time, what we are trying to be cognizant of the fact is we are meeting a lot of developers from across spectrum, across blockchain, across geographies, and partnering with them because, we want as many people to come onto us because this is something which is not yet explored in the blockchain industry. And we have a testnet releasing on 30th of this month. So we want to carry the same momentum that we have at the moment for the coming month as well. Yeah, I think that's something which is happening on the marketing front at the moment.
Can you list 1 to 2 killer features of this project that makes it ahead of its competitors? What is the competitive advantage your project has that you feel most confident about?
Yeah, so in fact, I think there are many features that we have, but one thing which actually separates us with a lot of projects that those are out there is the feature of cross-chain transfer, because that is something which is currently not offered by anyone. Because whenever I say that cross-chain transfer is not offered by anyone, right now what they're doing is they are operating in a manner which is a multi-chain feature, right? And when I say multi-chain feature, it actually you are present on one chain, but you have to also do a lot of things on the other chain as well. Like for example, whenever you're doing if I have to specify about bridging process, right now the way things are moving and things are operating in the bridging process is you actually create a protocol. You are present on one chain and you want to bridge it to a chain B, right? What you essentially do is you have to feed in the information that, hey, I need my assets on chain B. And that's how the bridging process works. But what we are trying to do is we are trying to make people experience the bridging process in a very different manner. So for example, you are present on chain A and at the same time you want to bridge your token to, let's say, there are different chains that you are part of and you want to get those tokens on chain B, C and D. And you can actually bridge your token to I token, right? So if let's say your tokens are bridged now, depending upon the usage, if you want to withdraw your token on chain B, you can do that. If you want to withdraw on chain C, you can do that. If you want to withdraw on any other chain, you can do that. Right now, that's not possible. So we are taking the whole cross-chain transfer altogether a new level. And that is something which we are really excited about. In fact, that's something which is going to be a new innovation in the industry in terms of token standard, which is not yet done by any other player. So that's something which we are really, kicked about. And that's what we are trying to create here at Merkle.
Okay, last question. How would you introduce the concept to people who have not heard of Merkle before?
In fact, this is pretty exciting for us because if we are actually the first kind of protocol in the whole Web3 world, right? That's actually solving the problem of cross-chain transfer between different blockchains that exist. If I just have to make you visualize, imagine a world where, all these blockchain work as one big protocol, right? All of them coming together. That's able to harness each other's strength at the same time, functioning together rather than in isolation. So that's something which we are trying to create, like a one big protocol. And we actually stand at, the cusp of cross-chain infrastructure where, that data, information, assets can be freely moved from one blockchain to another. Right. So that is what we are actually creating at Merkle.
Wow, great. Thanks for answering 20 questions from the community. Now it's your turn to ask our fans 6 questions. Do you have the 6 questions ready?
Yes, I have. My first question is, what is the biggest problem Merkle is trying to solve? My second question is, what is the long-term vision that we have? The third question that I have is, how would you define Merkle in a few words? The fourth question that I have is, what will create a strong demand for Merkle in the future? The fifth question that I have is, what are the different consensus mechanism available for Merkle? The sixth question and the last question that I have is, what are the couple of use cases for Merkle?
Hey, awesome session. Thank you for the questions. We hope you guys liked the interview session with Sohail. For fans whose questions are selected, please claim your rewards as per the instructions in the description box below. And for those who want to participate and win Merkle, simply answer the 6 questions that Sohail had asked, comment your answers in the comment section below, and we will pick 6 lucky winners. Thank you so much for coming into our show, Sohail. Till the next time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Bye!
Hey Jasmine, it was really pleasure joining you guys. Take care. Bye.